The restaurant is yours now, my father said. Just sign here, and everything we built together will belong to you. Thought it was a gift, until I discovered. Let me back up. I'm Sarah, and until last month, I was the head chef and co-owner of Bella Luna, a moderately successful Italian restaurant in downtown Seattle. The restaurant was my inheritance from Nana, my grandmother who raised me after my mother passed. But more than that, it was my home for the past 15 years. The place where I learned to cook, where I met my husband Marcus, and where I thought I was building a legacy with my family. I should have seen the warning signs. The way my father James started showing up more often after his latest business venture failed. How he convinced me to add him as a co-owner, for tax purposes. The strange meetings with bank representatives that I was too busy in the kitchen to attend. But when you grow up idolizing someone, it's hard to see the monster beneath the mask. The first real red flag came during our busy season last December. I was reviewing our quarterly finances when I noticed some discrepancies. Large transfers to accounts I didn't recognize, loans I never approved, and a second mortgage I definitely hadn't signed for. When I confronted Dad, he had a perfectly reasonable explanation. Expansion plans he was working on as a surprise, investments to secure our future, all very hush-hush to avoid tipping off competitors. Trust me, sweetheart, he said with that winning smile that had charmed 3 wives after my mother. Have I ever steered you wrong? Yes, actually, many times. But I wanted so badly to believe him, to have the father-daughter relationship I'd always dreamed of. So I ignored my gut and trusted him. Biggest mistake of my life. It wasn't until Maria, our longtime hostess, pulled me aside one evening that things started unraveling. Sarah, something's not right, she whispered, glancing nervously at my father's office. I overheard him on the phone talking about selling the restaurant to some developer. He said something about getting you out of the way first. I didn't want to believe it, but that night, I stayed late and did some digging. What I found made me physically ill. Dad had been systematically draining the restaurant's accounts for months, funneling money into his personal ventures. He'd taken out massive loans using Bella Luna as collateral. And worst of all, he'd been negotiating with a developer to sell the property, my grandmother's legacy, to build luxury condos. When I confronted him, his mask finally slipped. What choice did I have? He sneered. You were too sentimental, too attached to this dump. Do you know what this property is worth? But no. You wanted to keep serving pasta to the same boring customers year after year. This dump was Nana's life work, I shot back. She trusted me to preserve it. Your grandmother was a fool who never understood business. Just like you. That's when Marcus stepped in. My husband had been quietly watching this unfold, but something in Dad's tone made him snap. Get out, he said, voice low and dangerous. Now. Dad just laughed. You don't get it, do you? I own 51% of this place now. You two work for me. And you're both fired. He was right about the ownership. He'd manipulated everything so perfectly that legally, he could do whatever he wanted with Bella Luna. That's how I found myself sitting across from him at the bank, being forced to sign away my inheritance to cover the massive debt he'd accumulated in the restaurant's name. But here's what my father didn't know. I'd learned a few things from Nana besides cooking. What Dad never understood about Nana was that she wasn't just a simple Italian grandmother who got lucky with a restaurant. She was a shrewd businesswoman who taught me everything she knew, including how to protect myself from people exactly like him. Family will hurt you worst of all, she used to say while rolling pasta dough, because they know exactly where to stick the knife. That's why, when she left me the restaurant, she also left me something else. Detailed records of every recipe, every vendor relationship, and every loyal customer we'd served over the years. More importantly, she left me a separate LLC that actually owned all of our recipes and branding. Something I never told my father about. While Dad was busy stealing my inheritance, I was quietly making moves of my own. First, I reached out to our vendors, many of whom had known me since I was a teenager learning to negotiate produce prices. They were happy to sign exclusive contracts with my separate company, especially after hearing what my father was planning. Then I contacted our regular customers. Bella Luna had hosted countless weddings, anniversaries, and family celebrations over the years. These weren't just customers, they were part of our extended family. When they learned that Dad was planning to demolish their beloved restaurant, they were eager to help. One of them, Patricia, happened to be a senior partner at a major law firm. What your father did wasn't just immoral, she said over espresso one morning. Some of it was illegal. Those loan documents you showed me? The signatures don't match. He forged your name, Sarah. That's when the plan really started coming together. But I needed one more piece to fall into place. Remember Maria, our hostess? Turns out she'd been recording Dad's phone conversations for weeks, ever since she first got suspicious. In Washington state, it's legal to record conversations you're a party to. And while Maria wasn't technically part of these conversations, Dad had a habit of using speakerphone in his office with the door open, a habit that was about to cost him everything. The day after I signed the papers at the bank, Dad stood proudly in Bella Luna's dining room, showing the developer his plans for the new condo building. That's when the police walked in. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged signatures, fraudulent loans, recorded conversations proving his intent to defraud. But the final nail in his coffin? The developer he'd been working with was wearing a wire. Turns out the FBI had been investigating Dad's business ventures for months. As they let him out in handcuffs, he looked at me with genuine confusion. "Why would you do this to your own father?" "Family will hurt you worst of all," I quoted, watching his face as he recognized Nana's words. "Because they know exactly where to stick the knife." The legal battles took months. The bank foreclosed on Bella Luna, but with Dad's fraud exposed, I was able to recover most of our losses through insurance. The building was sold, yes, but not to the developer Dad had been working with. Remember those loyal customers I mentioned? They formed an investment group and bought the property themselves. Their first order of business? Leasing it back to me under my separate LLC's new restaurant, Luna Nuova, New Moon. Same location, same recipes, which I still owned, same heart, but a fresh start. Marcus proved to be my rock through all of this. He spent countless nights reviewing documents with Patricia's legal team, rebuilding relationships with vendors, and redesigning our space for Luna Nuova. "Your father made one huge mistake," he told me as we painted the new sign. "He thought Bella Luna was just a building and some recipes. He never understood that it was always about the people." Maria stayed with us, proudly wearing her new Luna Nuova uniform. "Family isn't always blood," she said on opening night, hugging me tight. "Sometimes it's the people who stand by you when real family lets you down." Dad was sentenced to 8 years for fraud. He wrote me a letter from prison, full of excuses and blame. I burned it without reading past the first line. Some relationships aren't worth saving. Last week, we hosted our first wedding at Luna Nuova. As I watched the bride dance with her father, I felt a momentary pang of sadness for what I'd lost. But then I looked around at my real family, Marcus squeezing my hand, Maria directing the servers with motherly pride, our regular customers turned investors beaming like proud parents, and I realized I hadn't lost anything worth keeping. Nana always said the secret to perfect pasta is knowing when to let go of the dough, of the past, of people who hurt you. She also said the best recipes are the ones that survive being broken and put back together. I think she'd be proud of how we've rebuilt. Tonight, as I lock up Luna Nuova, I can almost smell her signature marinara sauce and hear her laugh. "Brava, Piccola," she would say. "You learned the most important recipe of all, how to rise from the ashes stronger than before." The restaurant is full every night now. We've even had to start a waiting list for reservations. Turns out there's something satisfying about supporting a place that refused to be destroyed by greed and betrayal. Every now and then, someone asks about the old Bella Luna sign we kept mounted in a corner of the dining room. "It's a reminder," I tell them, "that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out what you really had all along." Dad gets out of prison in 7 years. Maybe he'll try to come here to see what became of his failed scheme. If he does, he'll find his granddaughter. Yes, Marcus and I are expecting, learning to roll pasta dough in Nana's kitchen, surrounded by the family we chose, the ones who stood by us when Blood Family failed. And maybe, just maybe, he'll finally understand what Nana meant when she said the true value of a restaurant isn't in its walls or even its recipes. It's in the love that seasons every dish and the loyalty that keeps people coming back for more. But honestly, I hope he doesn't come. Some chapters are better left closed, some recipes better left unchanged. Luna Nuova isn't just Italian for new moon. It's our declaration that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, but getting better. Now if you'll excuse me, I have marinara to make. Nana's recipe, of course. Some traditions are worth keeping, even if the people who taught them to us aren't. 3 days ago, I was in the middle of lunch service when Maria rushed into the kitchen, her face pale. "Sarah, you need to see this." She handed me her phone, open to a local news article. The headline made my blood run cold. Local restaurant fraudster released early on technicality. Defense claims evidence mishandling. My father was out. 3 weeks ago, actually. Nobody had bothered to notify me. I managed to finish lunch service on autopilot, my mind racing. Why hadn't he tried to contact me? Then I remembered his pattern. He never strikes immediately. He likes to wait, plan, make you feel safe before he ruins everything. That evening, after closing, Marcus and I were discussing security upgrades when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I should. "Hello, Sarah." It wasn't my father's voice. It was Angela, his third wife, the one who'd lost her inheritance to one of his investment opportunities right before he met my mother. I hadn't spoken to her in 20 years. He's been asking questions, she said without preamble. About Lunenwova, about your pregnancy. He's different. The kind of different that scares me. She went on to explain that Dad had contacted her shortly after his release, claiming he'd found God in prison, wanting to make amends. I played along, she said. Figured it was better to know what he was planning. Sarah? He's obsessed with the idea that you stole his legacy. He keeps talking about his grandchild, how he won't let you poison another generation against him. I felt the baby kick as if sensing my distress. Marcus, seeing my face, took the phone and put it on speaker. There's more, Angela continued. He's been meeting with Robert Chen. That name hit me like a punch to the gut. Robert Chen, the developer who'd worn the wire, whose testimony had helped convict my father. What game were they playing? Why are you telling me this? I asked. There was a long pause. Because 20 years ago, I watched him destroy my family's business and convinced myself it wasn't my problem. I can't make that mistake again. Check your email. I'm sending you everything I have, recordings, emails, his whole plan. After we hung up, I opened my email with shaking hands. What I found. I need a minute to process this. Dad hasn't just been planning revenge. He's been methodically working to destroy everything we've built, and he's got help from people I trusted. I have to go, Marcus just texted. Someone's trying to access our restaurant's computer system, but I promise I'll update soon. Just, if you're in Seattle and see James Morrison around Lunenwova, call the police. Don't confront him. Some people don't change in prison. They just get better at hiding who they really are. I've been staring at my screen for an hour, trying to figure out how to write this update. The past 48 hours have been intense. Remember that attempted computer system breach I mentioned? Turns out it was just the tip of the iceberg. Let me start with Angela's email. The attachments included recorded conversations between my father and Robert Chun dating back 6 months before Dad's release. Their plan was elaborate. Chun would claim the FBI had coerced his testimony, potentially invalidating Dad's conviction, which explains the early release. Meanwhile, they'd been systematically targeting our investors, the loyal customers who helped us rebuild. But here's where it gets twisted. Dad wasn't just after revenge. He was trying to force us into a corner where we'd have to sell Lunenwova to save it. The buyer? A shell company he and Chen created while Dad was still in prison. The cyber attack wasn't meant to steal data. It was meant to plant evidence that we'd been cooking our books, making it look like we were doing exactly what Dad had done with Bella Luna. They wanted to trigger an audit that would freeze our accounts right before our big loan payment is due. But they made one crucial mistake. Remember when I said Marcus had been redesigning our space? What I didn't mention was that before we met, he worked in cybersecurity. He left that career because he wanted something more personally fulfilling, hence joining the restaurant business. But he never lost his skills. When he saw the breach attempt, he didn't just block it, he traced it. The digital trail led to a small tech firm downtown, owned by Chen's nephew. Marcus managed to access their system. Don't ask me how. He says the less I know about that part, the better, and found everything. Emails, contracts, their entire playbook, including something none of us expected. Mom's death 15 years ago? The car accident that sent me to live with Nana? It wasn't an accident. I'm still processing this part, so bear with me. Among the files was an old email chain between Dad and Chen. They'd been working together even back then, trying to get control of the original family property where Bella Luna was built. Mom found out, threatened to expose them. 2 days later, her brake lines failed on the highway. The police ruled it an accident. Dad played the grieving widow perfectly. I never suspected, but Nana did. That's why she changed her will, leaving everything to me instead of him. That's why she created that separate LLC for the recipes. She knew what he was capable of, but she couldn't prove it. Until now. I handed everything over to Patricia yesterday. She brought in a forensic accountant and a criminal investigator she trusts. They're building a case as I type this. Dad doesn't know we have any of this yet. He still thinks his plan is working. This morning, he had the audacity to send me a text. Heard you might be having some financial troubles, sweetheart. Why don't we meet for coffee? I might be able to help. I didn't respond, but I saved the message. Patricia says it's better to let him think he's winning. Marcus hasn't left my side since we discovered the truth about Mom. Last night, he found me in Nana's old office at 3 a.m., going through her papers. She tried to tell me, I said, holding up her old diary. All those warnings about Dad, about keeping the business protected. She knew. She did more than warn you. He reminded me. She armed you. Everything you need to fight him. She made sure you had it. He's right. The separate LLC, the detailed records, the loyal customer base. Nana didn't just leave me a restaurant. She left me everything I'd need to finish what she started, bringing James Morrison to justice. Tomorrow, we're meeting with the FBI. Patricia says with the new evidence about Mom's death, they can reopen the case. Chen's nephew, faced with conspiracy charges, has agreed to testify. It's all falling into place. But I'm scared. Not of Dad, not anymore. I'm scared of what knowing the full truth might do to me. For 15 years, I thought I'd lost my mom to a tragic accident. Finding out it was murder, that the man who hugged me at her funeral had orchestrated it. How do you come back from learning something like that? Maria caught me crying in the wine cellar earlier. Without a word, she pulled out 2 glasses and a bottle of Mom's favorite Chianti. We still stock it. Your mother used to say that wine isn't just for celebrations, she said. Sometimes it's for remembering. Sometimes it's for finding the strength to do what needs to be done. We sat there in silence, sipping wine in the cellar where Mom first taught me about vintages and regions, where she dreamed about the future of Bella Luna, where, unknowingly, she spent her last happy days before Dad took her from us. I felt the baby kick again. She's been active lately, as if she knows something big is happening. Maria touched my belly gently. This little one, she said, she'll know the truth from the start. About her grandmother, about Nana, about how strong the women in her family are. No more secrets, no more lies. I have to go. The FBI agents are here. Marcus is ordering dinner for everyone. We're closed to the public tonight, using the restaurant as our base of operations. Patricia is setting up in Nana's old office. It feels right, somehow, that we're doing this here. Dad thinks he's coming for coffee tomorrow to discuss helping with our financial troubles. Instead, he's walking into a trap 15 years in the making. Nana used to say that revenge is like overcooked pasta. It might satisfy you for a moment, but it's not what nourishes you. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about justice. For Mom. For Nana. For every person my father has hurt. I'll update again when it's done. For now, raise a glass if you have one. To the family we lose, the family we choose, and the truth that finally sets us free. They say there are moments that divide your life into before and after. Meeting my father for coffee yesterday was one of those moments. Luna Nuova was closed for a private event. The FBI had people stationed throughout the restaurant. Patricia's team was set up in the back office. Marcus and Maria insisted on being there too. Family doesn't let you face these things alone. Dad walked in at exactly 9 a.m., perfectly pressed suit, that familiar confident smile. For a second, I was 8 years old again, believing he could do no wrong. Then I remembered Mom. Sweetheart, he said, arms open for a hug I didn't give him. You're looking well. Pregnancy suits you. We sat at Mom's favorite table by the window. He ordered espresso, just like the old days at Bella Luna, remember? I let him talk. About his reformation in prison. About his concerns for my financial situation. About his excitement to be a grandfather. He was so convinced of his own performance that he didn't notice my lack of reaction. Classic James Morrison. So in love with his own voice that he couldn't see the trap closing around him. I've found some investors, he said finally, sliding over a folder. They're willing to help you out of this situation. All you have to do is sign. I opened the folder slowly, making a show of reading the documents inside. Interesting structure, I said. Routing everything through Galaxy Investments, LLC. Isn't that Robert Chin's company? He didn't even flinch. Robert's changed, Sarah. Like me. We both regret how things happened before. Regret, I repeated. Like how you regretted what happened to Mom? That got his attention. The mask slipped, just for a second, but I saw it. That flash of calculation behind his eyes. Your mother's death was a tragedy, he said carefully. I know I wasn't perfect after that, but dash. Cut the act, Dad. I took out my phone and played one of the recordings Angela had sent. His voice, younger but unmistakable, discussing brake lines and insurance policies with Chen. He went very still. Where did you get that? Does it matter? I have everything. The emails. The plans. Your whole playbook, from Mom's accident to your latest scheme with Chen's tech firm. Those records were sealed, he said. Mask completely gone now. There's no way, Dash. Unless Chen's nephew turned on you? I watched that land. Amazing what people will do when faced with conspiracy charges. He stood up abruptly, finally noticing that the other customers in the restaurant were moving to block the exits. You don't understand, he snarled. Everything I did for this family. Your mother was going to ruin everything. And you're just like her, too sentimental, too weak to do what needs to be done. No, Dad. Mom was strong. Nana was strong. They built something real here. All you know how to do is destroy. That's when he made his final mistake. He reached into his jacket, probably for his phone, but the FBI agents didn't wait to find out. Within seconds, he was face down on my grandmother's handmade tiles, being read his rights. As they let him out, he started laughing. You think this changes anything? I'm still your father. That baby is still my grandchild. Family is forever, Sarah. I walked up to him, close enough to see the gray in his perfectly dyed hair. the fine lines of age his expensive creams couldn't quite hide. No, Dad. Family is a choice. And I made mine 15 years ago when Mom died. I just didn't know it then. After he was gone, I sat at that table for a long time, looking at the spot where he'd been sitting. Marcus brought me chamomile tea. Maria put on Mom's favorite opera playlist. Patricia's team packed up their equipment. Life went on. That was yesterday. Today, Dad's face is all over the local news. Restaurateur charged with murder in decades-old cold case. Chen's nephew gave them everything. The DA says with the new evidence, they're looking at 25 to life. No technicalities this time. Luna Nuova opened for dinner service as usual. Our regulars came in waves, not just to eat, but to show support. Patricia's daughter got engaged at table 7. Maria's grandson took his first steps by the bar. My daughter, the doctor confirmed it's a girl yesterday, kicked up a storm as I made Nana's tiramisu. Life goes on, but it's different now. The truth has a way of changing things, of lifting weights you didn't even know you were carrying. Mom's favorite Chianti is still on our wine list. Nana's recipes still fill the kitchen with familiar scents. Their pictures hang proudly on our walls. No empty spaces, no missing pieces. Just the truth of who they were and what they built. As for me, I'm done writing updates about James Morrison. He took enough of our family's story. The rest belongs to us, to the family we chose, to the legacy we protected, to the future we're building. Tonight, as I lock up the restaurant, I swear I can feel them both, Mom and Nana. In the warm glow of the kitchen lights, in the lingering scent of basil and garlic, in the quiet peace of knowing that finally, justice has been served. To everyone who followed this journey, thank you. Your support meant more than you know. To anyone out there dealing with family betrayal, the truth always finds its way out. And sometimes, the family you choose is stronger than the family you're born into. Luna Nuova means new moon, a fresh start, a clean slate. Tomorrow, we'll open our doors like we always do. We'll cook with love, serve with pride, and remember that the best recipes, like the best families, are the ones we choose to make our own.